but we're going to go to today's Tanya. Let me show you some pictures. So we keep on talking about the 10 energies, the 4 worlds. So I said, let me do some pictures. I got it from Chabad.org. And we'll go through the 4 worlds and the 10 spheros, the 10 energies in each world, okay? So let me get my pointer here, and hopefully this will work. So it's actually, we didn't learn about this in Tanya now, but it's quite interesting that we know Hashem's name is made up of these letters, the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey, okay? So here he's saying that Atzilus, okay, which is the Atzilus, which is the first world, you'll see in the top to the left is Atzilus, is the world of Atzilus. Okay, it's right there, I'm pointing to it. It's emanation, it's the first, you know, it's almost like it doesn't exist because it's close to the infinite, right? It's like same idea in a way, it's a world of chachma, of wisdom, because we know it comes from elsewhere. You know, you feel like you're nothing, you're just coming from somewhere. Okay, and he calls it here initial inspiration. Okay, then we have Bria. Bria is the second world I'm pointing to it, where creation becomes more identified, more detailed. It's also connected often with the world of Bina. Bina is understanding, it's wisdom. That's why we're going to see Torah comes from that level. We learned yesterday, it's the broadening of the concept, but you actually can identify the details and so on. Then we have another letter called Vav, which is the third letter of God's name. That's the third world, Yitzira. It's formation. As we say, it's the emotional involvement in plans. Is the intellect, the wisdom and understanding will then go into create different emotions in the person. Finally, the lowest world is the letter Hey, last name of Hashem. That is the world of Asiya, the world of action, the physical, material world, the world of kingship, because you're king over subjects. And it's the building of the actual project of the physical world. So that's a little bit of a map. So really there are these 4 worlds: Tzilos, emanation, Bria, creation, Yitzira, formation, and Asiya, action. Okay, so everything has to come down from the infinite, will then travel through those 3 worlds. Okay, moving right along to the next picture we have here. We have each world has the 10 spheros. Each world has the 10 energies. We're not going to talk about Keser today. We didn't really get into that. But every world has Chachma, with wisdom, Bina, knowledge. Then they get in touch with the Das, the knowledge, wisdom and understanding. Then when you make it personal, you make a connection, which is knowledge, we learned about in Tanya at length, you'll then have Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hoid, and Yesod. Now the lowest one, I'm not sure why they put it up here, is Malchus, is kingship. I'm not sure why it's over here, but it really is the low, it comes after everything, and it becomes the mother for the next world that's going to be created. So again, the wisdom and understanding is the 2 top, the knowledge connects it to the emotions, and then you end off with Malchus, which I think, I don't know why it's there, it should really be, I think, at the bottom. I'm sure there's a good reason for it, I don't know why, but it should be, that's where it goes to the next world. Okay, here you have the 10. If you want to know what the 10 are, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, that leads to the emotions of kindness, strength, beauty, victory, splendor, and foundation. And finally, kingship, which goes on to create the actual physical world. So that's a little bit of Kabbalah, helpful, hopefully, to studying today's class in Tanya, and we've been learning it over the past. So there's an interesting question that's addressed in today's class in Tanya. Okay, an interesting question that we're going to address in today's class in Tanya. Where are we over here? And that is that we kept on saying that the creation of the world comes through the Holy of Holies. So we said in each world, there's a reveal, the first part of the world, and that is the Holy of Holies in the world. That's where the light of Hashem's energy is revealed. And from there, just like the brain will give energy to the rest of the body, so too the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies, which is in the Temple Mount, which is a lot of the news that's going on now, a lot of fight over it, is the Holy of Holies. And from there, the rest of the world gets its energy and its life from that part. So we said yesterday that there was a very big difference between the first temple and the second temple, if you remember in yesterday's class, because the first temple had the tablets. Okay, there were 5 things that were lacking from the second temple. For example, one of the things were, if you remember our class in Parshas Truma and Tetzava, the Kohen Gadol had a breastplate that you put Hashem's holy name in it, and it would magically work, and you'd be able to ask Hashem questions. During the second temple, they had the breastplate with the gemstones, but not Hashem's holy name, that they would be able to communicate with God as they did in the first temple. So also another thing that was lacking is at the end of the first temple, one of the prophets and the kings hid the ark, and they did not have the ark in the second temple. If I don't want to go over yesterday's whole class, but we said yesterday that godliness came from the first world of Atzilus, emanation, to the second world of creation, to the second world of Bria, and that directly jumped through all the worlds into the tablets, because the tablets come from the second world, which is creation, which is understanding, right? Which is logic, which is understanding. And the Ten Commandments had in it the energy of the Holy of Holies from the second world, and that is what was in the tablet. So when they brought that to the Holy of Holies in the Beis Hamikdash, that brought that an unbelievable, crazy dimension that was within our world, a dimension that was out of this world. However, in the second Beis Hamikdash, they didn't have the tablet, so they didn't have that energy, but they still had something very holy. And the holiness is that it's still the brain of the world of Asiya, of the physical world. It's still the brain of the physical world. So although it's not the second world, the world number two, the world of creation, it's not that revealed energy, but it is the world of action, the physical world of kingship, of physical world, and which is very holy. So that's what he's saying. In the second temple, which we did not have the tablets or the ark, the rabbi said that there wasn't godliness presence in the temple because we didn't have the ark. Pirush, but the meaning is not, God forbid, that there was no godliness there anymore. The meaning is not that they didn't have any godliness there. It means that the Madrega Shechina which means the level of the first light and shine and energy that was shining in the first temple, that was not the same level of energy and shine in the second Beis Hamikdash. Ella, in the second temple, but it was still very holy. What did it have? It didn't have the world, the second world, the world of creation coming down, but the second world would gradually, as we learned yesterday, go down to the third world, and the third world finally into the fourth world. Malchus, the lowest level of the third world, went into the beginning, the top, the Holy of Holies of the fourth world, just like the brain is the shine of the soul, the strongest part is in the brain. That is the Holy of Holies in the Temple Mount of the Beis Hamikdash. That is the Holy of Holies, had that great energy. So it's still very, very holy. It's not have another dimension. It's its own dimension, but it's the holiest place within its dimension of the world. And therefore, because of that, so therefore, because it was so holy, you were not allowed to just walk in there just because you don't have the tablets there anymore. Only the Kohen Gadol, only one person could come, the high priest could come only once a year, only on Yom Kippur, because of the tremendous holiness of that place. It was the holiest place in the world, in our world. But now we got a problem. And now that the temple is destroyed, my friends, what happens now? Where is God in our world? That's, I think, in the text I wrote out today, in the text in today's class. Okay, so we got a major issue. We have no Beis Hamikdash. We have no Holy of Holies. So here's a very powerful statement. Where is Hashem's presence revealed today? The only place where Hashem's presence is revealed and exists is in the 4 amas, in the 6 feet, which is your personal space of someone who's learning halacha, someone who's learning Jewish law. So if you're a Jew who's studying Jewish law, God is revealed at that moment within you, because we don't have the original temple, which had the glory of the second world of creation within the other dimension of the world. We don't even have the glory of the second temple, which is Hashem revealed, the brain of our world, the source of energy in our world. But we do have is Jews sitting and learning Torah. And when a Jew sits and learns Torah, that's the closest you can get to the holiness, a Jew learning Jewish law. When you get to Jewish law, then you get the closest you can to that original revelation of godliness in this world. Now, however, it's not the same level of godliness as the Holy of Holies in the temple. Why not? Because in the level of godliness in the Holy of Holies in the temple, okay, that was the brain of the world. That was the first strongest glory. It's like the brain of the world, the way the soul is mostly revealed in the brain. That's what it was. But when you and I study Torah, when we study Jewish law, when you and I study Torah, it has to go down. It's not that first glory and revelation and the level of the brain. It has to be more brought down into, remember I told you each world has 10 energies. It's not the first energy as was in the Holy of Holies within our world, in Asiya, in the world of Asiya, in the physical world. It was the last one. It was Malchus. It had to first still evolve down to the lowest level, to the physical, the real, within the lowest world. It had to become real physical. Why? Because most mitzvahs are physical, so it had to be like dumbed down or physical down and more concentrated. It couldn't just be a revelation at the level of the Holy of Holies in the temple. It had to be brought down till they could actually become physical mitzvahs that we do. So, but that is the closest we get to bringing Hashem's presence into this world is by a Jew sitting and learning. Even if it's one Jew who learns by himself. Shechina imay, Hashem's presence is with him at the moment that he's studying Torah. As it says in the Talmud about brachas, that means that Hashem's presence is with him. And it comes down through the lowest level of the highest world, Atzilus, to the lowest level of the next world, to the lowest level of the next world, the lowest level of the last world comes down, and you bring Godus in that way. So when we dealt with the temple, the Beis Hamikdash, the Holy of Holies, it was the highest level of the first world, to the highest level of the second world, to the highest level of the third world, to the highest level of the fourth world. But now that we're talking about our mitzvahs that we do, it's the lowest level of the first world, to the lowest level of the second world, to the lowest level of the third world, to the lowest level of the fourth world, and that is Hashem's presence, the closest Hashem is revealed in the mitzvahs. The question is, though, why does it say specifically the learning of mitzvahs? And he's going to explain that right now. He's going to say something interesting. That maybe I told you in the map, actually, there was a thing called Keser, crown, which was on top of wisdom and understanding. And that is what's on top, even in the human being. What's higher than your wisdom and understanding? What's higher than your wisdom and understanding is your will. So that's even deeper. Wisdom is what you think about, but your will is what you want. And you might not even know why it is what you want, but that's the deepest part of the person, the closestly connected with them. I don't know, I just want it. That's my will. So where do we see Hashem's will in the mitzvahs? We're not getting all intellectual on you. We're not trying to understand the reason for it. We're not trying to figure it out. I just know there's 613 biblical mitzvahs that Moses gave us on Mount Sinai. There's another 6 mitzvahs that were given by the rabbi. So we have a total of 620, 613 plus 7, which equals 7, which equals 620. And when you do a mitzvah, you're fulfilling Hashem's will, which is in a sense even higher than Hashem's wisdom. Let's see now. Because the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah. Kulan, first of all, he's explaining why we're dealing with the lowest level of the lowest world. Why can't be the highest level of the lowest world like it was in the Holy of Holies? Because Ruban Kekulan and mitzvahs, most mitzvahs are physical. They require a physical act. Entering the Holy of Holies didn't maybe require such a physical act. It was the most spiritual part of our lowest world. But when we're talking about the mitzvahs that we do, it has to come down in the lowest element because it's the lowest part of the 10 energies in our world. Even the mitzvahs that you want to argue and say they're intellectual mitzvahs, like studying Torah, or saying a blessing, which you use your mouth, or like when you do grace after meals, you do the Birchat Hamazon, or Kriya Shema, we say Shema, Tefillah, and prayer. Even those are going to say, look, they're not physical mitzvahs. I go to Shul and I daven. What physical act I'm doing? The bottom line is, I think we mentioned this in Tanya before, that you can't think about the davening. You actually have to say the words of davening. It doesn't count if you don't say the words of davening. So davening is meant to be brought down in the physical world. So it has to move your mouth and make it a physical world. And even though you're just moving your lips, it's still considered a physical act. So the energy that we're going to reveal of Hashem's presence in our world is a very physical act, and therefore it must come down lower than the Holy of Holies in our bottom world. It must come down to Malchus, the lowest level, physical level of our world. And then when you take the 613 commandments, biblical mitzvahs, with the 7 commandments of the rabbis, the gematria, what numerical value of 613 plus 7 equals 620. What is 620? That's the gematria of Keser. Keser is a crown, which I showed you in the 10 energies of that person. The will, the crown, was the top. Shuratin al Yabaruchu, which is, there's really an 11th one, and that is the will of Hashem, which is higher. Just this is what I want you to do. Like I was speaking to a few of the people the other day, and I was telling them what's the law. We have 2 different classes, 2 different approaches to Torah. One is the study of Torah, which is what we do now. But then there's a question: what do you have to do as a Jew? It's not complicated. It's not supposed to be complicated. There are the 613 mitzvahs and the 7 mitzvahs Rabbanan, the 220 commandments, 613 plus 7, and that is it. That's what you do. It's not complicated. You just do. That's another class to study on why and how it works and the reasons and all that stuff. but there's 613 mitzvahs, and they are higher than the intellectual study of Torah because they're the will of Creator. They're coming. They're just, I'm doing what Hashem wants. But the will is connected to intellect, because first I learn what are the mitzvahs, and then I try to understand the mitzvahs. So the will of Hashem is connected to the Torah, which is the intellect of Hashem. And God's will and His wisdom are totally one with Hashem. That comes from the first world, the highest world, the first level of each world, and that it's totally connected with the infinite energy of Hashem. Now, the truth is that we're talking about the written Torah now, but out of the written Torah, the tablets we spoke about, the written Torah, comes the oral Torah. It's all an evolution. God's will, which is connected to the intellect to understand His will, which is connected to the oral tradition, which explains even more what is it that Hashem wants and why is it that understanding. Hashem created the world with wisdom. That's that verse that says Hashem created the world with wisdom. What is that talking about? That's a verse in Proverbs. It's talking about Teresh Shabbal Peh. That's talking about the oral tradition, the Nafka Mechachmi Ilah, which comes from the original wisdom. So the first level of wisdom, which is from the highest world of Atzilus, the first world, that's totally one with Hashem. The tablets come from there. But then it evolves to the Talmud, which comes into the world of understanding as the intellect becomes more rational and more understanding in our world. The Abba Yisod Barta, like it says in the Zohar, the father is the Abba, that wisdom, which is the father, gives birth to the daughter, which is the Talmud. So that is the class for today. That how do we don't have a Beis Hamikdash anymore? We don't have the Holy of Holies, and we don't have the temple, and we don't have the world. The closest a Jew could come back to that experience is when he studies Torah, comes back to that level of godliness and holiness as the closest we can come to the level of holiness that was felt in the second Beis Hamikdash, in the second temple. Any questions or comments on today's interesting Tanya? Questions or comments?